Hi there, everyone. It's Chris McDonald, 2 o'clock East Coast, and still have a lot of people joining right now, so I'm going to hold off for another minute or so, just since we do have a number of people getting in. I updated our timer tip Tuesday since most of us don't know what day it is anymore, and I made Roger socially responsible with his face mask and gloves. So we'll go ahead and get started. And before we do, I know a number of you have already been in these webinars before, but you do have on your little dashboard on the side the ability to ask questions. Originally, we scheduled this for 30 minutes. We bumped it out to an hour, so it's we'll take questions as needed. And also, I'll try to make it a point to pause periodically because I know I don't know all the attendees at the moment, but of the people that signed up, there are a number of people who that have done some interesting things or have pivoted in different ways, and they might have some suggestions to share that I don't touch on. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. And that is, this is the current situation. It stinks. It's an outright dumpster fire for our industry. And the reason why I'm saying this right now is because this is the last time in the talk that we're going to talk about it. Just keep in mind that, yes, this is horrible for you, but as a timer, but you're not alone. I mean, this is awful for events. This is awful for professional sports and for, you know, for major corporations, for small mom and pops businesses. Very, very few people are getting ahead right now. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of people are dealing with the same thing. I heard one really good analogy that we're not all in the same boat. We're all in our own boats, but we're in the same storm. And I think that's pretty indicative of what's going on. So it's kind of how we're weathering that storm in our boats. And my internet seems to be going super slow right now, so I apologize for that. Current situation, I think this is kind of across the board for folks. Your current revenue has decreased and been eliminated. You still have bills that you have to pay. Many of you have laid off staff or furloughed staff or reduced staff pay. You likely don't have physical events planned yet. That's not saying you don't have events like in the fall, but like in the foreseeable future, like what you're dealing with on a day-to-day, you likely don't have physical events planned. And it's kind of an unknown path forward. And as a timer myself, this is at least how I feel about it. We at RunSignup kind of try to empower the timer as the knowledge base, the person to go to with for questions with answers. And so for a lot of us, this is kind of a uncharted territory, not really having answers. And so the big question is, what are you going to do about it? You know, again, we're all dealing with this. And I genuinely think that it's the people that decide to do something about it that are going to be successful. So I kind of drilled down to consolidate and pivot. This kind of the way I look at it is you're going to consolidate, whether it be your workload, your staff, the money you're spending, or the events that you put on. And you're going to pivot and figure out different ways during the lockdown and possibly moving out of it to generate revenue. So this is not a heavy on the fancy pictures or anything like that slideshow. So if you were looking for flashy pictures and things like that, sorry. Instead, I just tried to come up with a lot of ideas, and hopefully this kind of brings up things that other things that you know I'm not going to bring up because I didn't think about it, but it jogs your memory about it. So for timers, this is not for race directors at all. For timers, many of us have SIM cards that we're paying monthly fees. And if you're on, Timers Talk on Facebook, this was brought up a few weeks ago. If you're not, then call your SIM card provider and see if they'll allow you to hibernate your card plan for a set period of time. This isn't canceling your plan or anything like that. A number of people will call it, I think it's almost like a vacation mode. And you can pause, larger timing companies might have, 50, 100 or more SIM cards in place. And so this might be hundreds of dollars a month that you're paying for these cards, not for the data plan or not for the data. It's just for the cards. Speak with your car insurance company. A number of you have, timing vans or equipment trucks and trailers. And I'm not saying, hey, we don't own that car anymore. We don't want to pay insurance. I would strongly advise you to keep some sort of insurance in case, I don't know, a tree falls on it or something like that. But a number of insurance companies will decrease the amount you have to pay if the vehicle's not being driven. So just something to consider. Speak with your business lender about pausing loan payments. I put this extra note in there because I think a lot of folks, and maybe everyone on the call, does understand, but be mindful of forbearance versus forgiveness. So if you're talking about real estate, if you're talking about like a home loan or a business office loan, those are kept on the books for banks in a very different way. If you get your business lender on the phone, they'll be happy to chat with you about the differences. If you are getting forbearance, that might sound great. Hey, we don't have to pay our note for whatever, 3 months. On that 4th month, you have all 4 payments and interest due. So just be really, really careful if you go down that route. However, many non-real estate loans, they can be paused. And basically it's due to the different ways they keep them on the books. I'm sure someone on this is in banking and has a better explanation of what that actually is, but basically it's different ways they keep it on the books, and they can pause it and just add those 3 months or what have you on the back of the loan. You will be responsible for the interest on it, but in the grand scheme of it, it's if you need to make it through, a quarter, it can help out. The next is bring any work you can do in-house for the short term. We get in the habit, especially for larger organizations, get in the habit of outsourcing things, which as you grow is kind of mandatory in order to keep operations running smoothly. Look at bringing it in-house. It's pennies, it's dimes, it's quarters, but it adds up over time. And I put on there, move your website to RunSignup. We actually, just while I was doing the finishing touches on this, there was a blog post about the benefits and free websites on RunSignup. So if you just launched one, you probably already paid your annual or every 3-year payment. But if you're looking at opening a new event, a new virtual event, consider that site on RunSignup. And I only say that because it's free. It's just cost you're not going to see. So I'm going to breeze through this slide, though I did think it was important. Reaching out to the SBA, I know it's a hot topic. I'm not going to get into what you are supposed to do or what did or didn't work or who got what. It's my opinion, if you've not applied for relief, you should. If you don't know where to go, you can start at sba.gov. And if you want to get into a shouting match about how great or horrible it is, there's plenty of social media forums for you to do that. But for any of you that haven't, there is, I honestly right now I can't remember if it passed or not, but I'm fairly certain there's an additional several $100 billion going back into to these relief funds, and hopefully it'll be focused on smaller events or smaller companies. Again, breezing through that. So now, what to do? So I chatted with Brian Jenkins a bit about this because in terms of sales, he runs circles around me plus every single one of you guys put together. And you know, I asked him, if you were a timer, what would you do? And his exact response was, call every single one of your remaining races for 2020 right now. Like, set it up so that in the next 2 weeks, you have a one-on-one conversation with your remaining 2020 races. And so I think that with that, you're making that personal connection. You're also seeing how they're doing, and you're running through their options. So for some of your bigger events, like if you have an event that has 1,000 people or 5,000 people, heck, even 500 people, and their event, the event is in, you know, late April, early May, they already know this stuff. But some of the ones in later May, June, July, they might not have some of this on their radar. And the smaller events, which as a timer, the bulk of most timers events are not 10,000 person races. I mean, there's a select few that there are, but most timers kind of sit in that 150 to 750 person range. It's the bread and butter of your book of business. Partly because there's more 150 person races than there are 1,000 person races. And so some of those smaller events, you're going to need to explain what a virtual race is. It's a new concept to some people, not to everyone. And they might know, like, generally speaking, what a virtual race is as a participant, but they might not understand what it does or how it benefits them as a race organizer. This next point I think is very, very important. And that is consider encouraging smaller races in the fall to go virtual now. And that's because the calendar is going to get full and they might back out due to low numbers if they wait too long. So I put that this might take some encouragement, but in the end is going to be the best option for their success, or likely going to be the best option. The reason being, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And so our biggest race in town is the Cooper River Bridge Run. And it was scheduled for mid-April, mid to early April. They decided that the best course of action was to postpone it. And so that postponed date is early August. And I'm sure all of you have a similar scenario where your large event in your town or your large event that you time has been early season, has been postponed to the fall. So it's going to fall on days that other events are already on, and it's going to be bad for the smaller events. So some talking points with those races is just that these larger rescheduled events are going to swamp their numbers if they both land on the same day. The other thing is they can now pull from a larger participant pool, since there's no physical limitations to the event. The point of this is I was chatting with a local oncology group who puts on an event each year, and you know they have people that have transplants and then move away, and everybody loves the cause, and they get 400 or 500 people a year to their 5K. And if they just went local and just went virtual, they might only get 150 or 250 people, which would be a huge drop in their numbers. But then I pointed out, how many of your folks, how many of your people that are interested, that believe in your cause, can't physically make it to your event? And the number's huge for a lot of these people, for a lot of these nonprofits. And so being able to market to folks that aren't physically able to come to their events normally, now they can participate. And I'm not going to say their numbers are going to go up, but it might not be as drastic of a decrease as they might think. And so how does that benefit you? Oop, I accidentally went back. Weird. So let's see. So Derek Bailey asked, I have a couple races that are wanting to go, have a couple races where they want to go virtual, go anywhere virtual, but not on RaceJoy. How do I make money on these? So my opinion on this would be exactly what this last talking point. So many of these races aren't setting up, and again, I'm not saying every race, I'm not saying, you know, all of your races or anything like that. But a number of your races, you're likely the one that's helping set up their RunSignup pages, or how their marketing works. Again, you are kind of considered the expert on the RunSignup side of things. Similarly, you can help them. You don't have to use RaceJoy. What I've chatted with a lot of these folks about is, hey, let's set up where the participant, there's enhanced virtual results. And you can set up enhanced virtual results, and you can set it so that it requires approval before that posts. So what we've done is we've chatted with some of our races and said, hey, obviously we're not going to be on site, so we don't have tag fees. We don't have, because your costs aren't the same. You don't have travel fees. You don't necessarily have staff fees. You don't have, you might not have bid fees. You might not have hotel, or you're not going to have hotel fees. So all of these things that might be built into your cost, you don't have anymore. And so you could talk to them and say, I will manage this data for you. I will review this information for you and post and approve these times. Now, obviously, I think it's hard to justify awards for some of these for like time versus time. But a number of people have created series of events, and it's like almost like a participation situation where you get points for participating. And you know, a lot of folks that were naysayers initially are now magically on board. You know, they're seeing people register. I know that a handful of people that are on this call right now would have never put on a virtual event. And we're not talking about events that turned into virtual events, but created their own virtual events. And a number of people on this call have created their own virtual events and have seen it be not wildly successful. They're not getting 10,000 people necessarily, but they're generating revenue, which is, you know, something, there's something to be said for that. So, and the slide is very slow. It's also, I realize Derek just said he's not interested in upselling RaceJoy, but it is a really good tool right now. So for those of you that are not Race Day certified, there is going to be a RaceJoy specific training mid-May. We actually just had one Tuesday, I believe. And so there's also going to be a Race Day scoring training in May as well. So some benefits to RaceJoy obviously is, you know, it's an app. You can allow for solo participant live support and a remote social engagement. The bigger thing though is if you are a Race Day certified timer, you get this. This is included in your certification. So you have the ability, if you want to give this to an event that's a long-standing client and they're going virtual, and you want to give it to them for free and, you know, help support them on all that, you know, you can't tell me on the other side of all this that they're not going to, you know, take the fact that you supported them, you gave them a new tool to make their race day, as much as it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, you helped make it better than it was going to be. that matters. That report matters. And so it's something to remember. Let's see. Jim's asked, we've done RaceJoy on an actual course for a virtual run. Can runners use it on their own? So, or sorry, they use it to run their own route? So presently, Jim, no. However, there is a run anywhere option that is coming out. I believe the release date right now is scheduled for June. And there will be plenty of blogs, probably a webinar on how to use it, things like that once it does release. But the premise behind it is go run 5K anywhere, and it's tracked via RaceJoy. So some other key features here, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them. So progress updates every mile. GPS tracking, obviously. You can put your own content branding in there. For someone who, if you're supporting an event that has a large sponsor, you can put geo-based audio cheers in there on the route that you have. And a specific example of this, I wanted to test out just if people would be interested in it in my neighborhood. And I literally mean the neighborhood that I live in. And so this Saturday from 7 until I think 11, we've set it so people can register for a free event, because I wanted to make sure that I got all the nuances, all the kinks out. People can start. We've got 4 courses that start right outside of my cul-de-sac, and there's a 1 mile course, a 5K, a 5 mile, and a 10K. And by midday Saturday, I'll know like 100% what I want to do for other events that I might want to charge for, or that I might want to release as virtual events, and other places in town, or virtually across the entire state, or what have you. So it is something you can play with as a certified timer. Let's see. Stacy asks, is there pushback on virtual races with the same course with people crowding? So it's not suggested to have people all show up at one time. We have a total of 9 people. When I say that I'm doing this, we're not talking about 50 or 100 or 200 people. It's a super small thing that I'm playing with. So in terms of time frame for virtual events, a lot of people are having great success setting it a week or 2 weeks, not a couple hours on a day. I just wanted results a little bit faster as to what I wanted to do. So again, if you're going to launch something and help an event go virtual, you can set RaceJoy to allow for weeks of a course, and you can put in your own. I think we actually have some information in here. Yeah, social distancing by region, everything. So the beauty of RaceJoy is, because so many things are changing quickly, you can push out information through the app. And so they can communicate their guidelines through this. So you can set pre-scheduled or on-the-fly news alerts, and you can see real time who's on the course. So you can monitor that, and there's plenty of. I'm not gonna dig too deep into any of these specifics, just because we're talking about so many different things. If you do want to learn more about RaceJoy, there's plenty of content that I can point you towards, or I can plug you in with Shelly Harris. She'd be more than happy to chat with you at length about what RaceJoy can do. But this is a great way to get the message out to people, and to give them a long period of time to complete it. So if they feel comfortable running at midnight, the course is open on RaceJoy. So it gives people plenty of space. In terms of just general, how things are going to come back and what courses are going to look like, things like that. There was a blog post that was just posted it might have been Friday. I think it was Friday of last week, and it's kind of how we're coming out of this. If you check out our blog, and it's got a lot of suggestions on how we think that that races are going to come back, and that's for race organizers, for participants, for spectators, for timers, kind of all over the map on that one. I hope I answered your question, Stacy. So social distancing with virtual events, obviously every region is different, but like we just said, you can expand the dates and time for completion. You can do additional course options. So and that is one thing. So if you have a 5K course, you can set multiple 5K courses. There's not a singular course, but for the very present time, there are only specific course map options. Again, the third bullet point there, the offer run anywhere option, that is on its way. It is being worked on. And then you could communicate guidelines and implement corral times. And I think I mentioned this later, but we're actually going to be doing a corral webinar next Thursday at 2 p.m. And for those of you, again, we're talking all timers, so I don't need to explain what a corral is, but corrals, we believe, are something that's going to come into play a lot more when we start rolling out of this. Maybe not for your 50-person event, but for your 500-person event, you might be doing wave starts in 50 and 100-person groups to thin the number of people out on course. I'm trying to get to these questions as they pop up. Let's see. Jamie Orr asks, we've created a couple of virtual runs, but giving people the opportunity to run anywhere as opposed to set courses not using RaceJoy. Do you think the advantage of having courses set are worth it for future virtual runs? That I'm not sure. The beauty of having a course set is everybody's running on a specific course. So the elevation changes, the challenge of the course itself is equivalent across the board. Obviously, weather can change, temperature can change, things like that. But I do think that having courses, I mean, it's kind of like having the King of the Mountain kind of stuff on Zwift or Strava or something like that. It matters. Those courses matter. You think about some of the hardest running routes, like the run up Brasstown Bald in Georgia, or some of the hardest cycling routes, like going up Alpe d'Huez. Those courses matter. So I do think that having set courses are beneficial, but only if you're looking at a social or a virtual event that you're targeting in a region, like a city, where you have multiple different places where people can run. If you're starting to launch a national virtual campaign, obviously Run Anywhere wins the day. And I think people are going to think it's pretty cool once it rolls out. So onward, other ways to generate revenue. And to some of you, this is a no-brainer. To others, maybe not. So going full service. And by full service, I'm not talking about event production, event management, marketing, stuff like that. Talking about offering bibs, t-shirts, medals, shipping, virtual race results. So working out special prices with your vendors. So most people, if you're helping order stuff periodically, your volume is high enough to likely get discounted rates. And obviously, the more things you order, the better off you are. So personally, I would suggest if you order everything from fill in the blank t-shirt company, and let's say you order an average of 250 shirts in order, and you do it 10 times a year or 20 times a year, So now you're looking at having ordered 2,500 or 5,000 shirts. By turning around to your vendor and saying, hey, look, we're going to keep working with you. We just want some volume discount. Let's come up with some sort of contract where I promise to work with you and you promise to give me this bulk pricing for all of my events as long as I order X amount of shirts. And so maybe you get 50 cents off of what you normally would get, which is huge. And so now you offer those shirts to the same event at the same price you did last year, whatever, $6, $7, whatever it is. But you're now being charged 50 cents less. So you're making 50 cents per. Again, it's pennies, it's nickels, it's dimes, but they add up. And for larger organizations, they will tell you that they're winning in the margins. And that's where their revenue is coming from, is pennies here and there. So let's see, Robert, on the Run Anywhere option, will the option still allow audio cheers and sponsor shoutouts? I'm not going to dig too far into that, Robert, only because not everything's been released, and so I don't know. I think that it would be a great option to have, at mile 1. Obviously, it wouldn't be a geo cheer; it would be like a distance cheer. So if it's not already on the in the dev pipeline, I'll bring it up and say that this would be a cool feature. And then Stacy also is the Run Anywhere part. Yes, Stacy, the Run Anywhere part will be for RaceJoy, and it will be just for the virtual option. So again, I'm trying to get to your questions as we go. And then Jim has mentioned one good sell point was the virtual gives the racer the option to order only what's needed. Exactly. So depending on now that's true for some events, not for everyone, Jim, in terms of no leftover stuff. Some races are allowing people to register up until the last day that results can be posted. And so they're shipping things. A lot of virtual events are setting, which kind of leads directly into the next part about many virtual events are stuck with the issue of how to get their swag to the participant. And in case you don't know, there's a huge cost and lots of work. And so a suggestion of mine is to bring shipping in-house and upcharge for the service. And it's going to be work on your part, but again, if you were making, $1 or $1.50 or 50 cents per person you were timing, you could potentially make up this margin in shipping for virtual events. And so what would happen is the event, either you order the shirts for them, or they order them themselves and they ship it to you, and you package and mail out everything for them for a cost, like a per person or per address cost or something like that. So again, it's not plug and play for some of you. However, it is something that you can do to make money. Again, I know of several people on this call that have pivoted and been able to generate quite a bit of revenue by shipping things for folks. And it's not a secret. It's the people that they're doing it for don't want the headache of doing it. So again, like, you have to think outside the box. It's not all about, like how to charge for timing of the virtual event. You can support these events in different ways. You just got to get creative. For some of you, you might be a juggernaut of marketing, and you've only marketed your events. And now you start helping people market their events on social media. And so the thing to think about is when all of this subsides, you don't necessarily go back to business as usual. You just now have an additional stream of revenue coming in and an additional service that you can provide. And that's where I go back to, like, the pivoting. Like, this is a pivot for now, but in the long run, this is something that you can do to build your business. So let's see. another thing to do, call other local races. And so again, like, this is not about timing. This is about supporting their virtual race. You at RunSignup, you know, with the tools as a race day certified or RaceJoy certified, you have tools at your disposal that others don't, or they might have them, but they have to pay for it. So a number of these other local events that you've not been able to time, they might now need this kind of support. And again, you're not saying, I want to time your event. You're saying, I can help support this year for virtual. And you know, now you have a rapport with that event. You help them in a time of need. So again, you're not asking for the timing contract. It's just maybe they can support, or maybe it's just fulfillment, you know, because you've pivoted how you do things with your business. So I did want to point out that if, you know, all of this sounds well and good, but you don't, like, you've never put on a virtual race, and I fall into that category. Like, up until a couple months ago, like, I personally had never put on a virtual race. You know, I own timing equipment. It's, you know, we throw mats down, we have clocks, we produce results, hand out awards, say your name on a PA system, that kind of thing. And so this change was quick, but it's real. And RunSignup has done a really good job of building this page out of virtual races. And so I think it's on the next slide as to where to go to. A site I would strongly encourage for you to check out is runsignup.com, go virtual. And let's see if I can click on this, if it's going to open. Nice. So here's the website. A couple of folks within RunSignup built this, and it is awesome. So you can go to webinars and blogs right here, and it will, I mean, answer so many of the questions. If you do have questions about how to do it, you can request a demo. If you keep scrolling down, virtual features, create a virtual race now. I mean, again, how to plan it, how to set it up, virtual promotion, like what to do with promoting, shipping and fulfillment. You know, if you're working more with fundraisers, how to do it with donations and fundraising, setting up virtual results, your race day experience from a distance. I mean, like, again, all of this, even with examples built in here, all of this is on here. And I think this is a phenomenal site to poke around on. So if you haven't yet checked out this site and you do think you're going to end up launching into some virtual events, again, I would strongly advise you to check it out. So that being said, once you've implemented everything you can, whether it be cutting costs or pivoting to new ways of generating revenue, consider training on new technology. So like I mentioned earlier, there is, I mean, again, like 2 days ago, there was a virtual RaceJoy training because I think there were like 50 or 60 people that were on that. They're going to do it again, and that'll be held in May. So just keep following up with the blog posts and your emails. That'll come out. There's also going to be a virtual race day scoring session for certification there. It'll also likely be in May. And so I like my typo in the next bullet point, but practice timing and rescoring events in race day scoring, and send it in with support tickets with questions. This is a great time to test things out. A great example of this is Amanda with Race Day Events. She pinged me and she was like, hey, would you have some time for some questions on Race Day scoring for some of my team? And I told her, no, I'll do the exact opposite. Like, let's set up a time and we'll get all of your guys in the same room, and you know, we'll go through your questions all at once. And so we have a time set up next week where I don't know how many people are going to be on it, but I would guess like 5 to 8 people on their team are going to sit down, and we're going to go through some examples of race day scoring. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to support you, and we're here to set up one-on-one demos if you need them. or Q&A sessions. And for the one-on-one demos, I always suggest for folks, if you are interested in the one-on-one demos for like race day scoring, test it out and play with it some before you jump in. That way we have some stuff to talk about, like specific questions. And if you need like a full-on refresher, let us know, and it might be that we can help get you into the race day scoring session as a refresher training. So yeah, tune into our other webinars. We are going to start kind of launching back into more content. We do feel like the tide has turned in terms of people are now looking on what to do. It's not kind of a sitting still. It's, you know, everybody's excited about the potential of one day getting back to it. And so people are more interested in training and learning and creating. So I would suggest for you to check out those webinars. And then that being said, I think I already mentioned this. Next Thursday, there is a webinar for corral times for virtual events. And this is the link to it. And you can sign up for it. It'll give you a reminder and drop you straight in, just like you did for this one. And then I think that's it in terms of the slides. Are there any other questions? I know a lot of you chimed in saying, you know, you are having success with the virtual races. Hopefully you're also thinking about some of these other ways to generate revenue. And again, like, these are just suggestions. You might have, I know I have a buddy in Georgia that he decided to go out and like, I think he set up PA systems, and he just like played music as people ran around his block. And he ended up making the news for it because it was social distancing, but he was giving like a lot of, he was just out there supporting the running community. And in case you haven't noticed, there are, at least where I live, I see more people running now than I have ever seen in my life. So the reason why I keep saying train yourself and be ready, because when this thing starts lifting, there's a really, really good chance that running is going to explode in a good way. Because, I mean, you can't tell me that you don't have friends or family or coworkers or what have you that they're like, I'm going on a walk every morning with my family, every single morning, a mile walk. And the first time we did it ever in the morning before school was during this shutdown. So, I mean, and every time we go out, we see more and more and more people. So again, you know, be ready, because when this thing lifts, you know, events are going to happen again. So that's anybody have any suggestions that I didn't bring up? You're welcome, Stacy. I mean, I'm sure this is just a fraction of the things that you could do. Some of you might have, for instance, you might be great at graphic design, you know, and start marketing your service, or you might have somebody in your organization that's great, that does all your t-shirts, you know, and maybe you could start marketing their services for graphic design. Again, like there's so many different options. I've seen a lot of people on Race Directors Hub that are renting out barricades and cones to grocery stores and hospitals. So if you've got equipment, don't forget, you can rent that out too. Or maybe you don't rent it out, maybe you give it away, or not give it away, but you give the service away as goodwill, and just request that that organization give you a shout out for it, so that people continue to think about your organization, your timing company, in a positive light, and that you stay relevant. Oh, Jim made a great point. There are presently fewer cars on the road. And so right now is a great time to go certify your courses if you're still allowed to get out there and do that. So again, like, you've got late season races that need certifying, now is the time to do it. Like, you're right, Jim, there are probably 25% of the cars on the road than normally are. Anyone else with some suggestions? If not, we'll wrap it up. Again, my email address is right there. If you have any questions, for those of you that haven't before, reach out. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about whatever. We're here to support you and make your race day experience a positive one. And I think that with a little ingenuity, we can, from both of us, we can make that happen. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I appreciate you guys joining me, and keep an eye out for other things coming out, and feel free to join me on Thursday at 2 for the webinar on virtual corrals. All right. Take care. You're welcome, Derek. You guys have a great day.